Um, so I thought we'll exchange some ideas on chanting, because it's personally for me, it's been a very, very useful tool. And I mean, I love chanting. I've always loved chanting, and it's been a constant companion to me through my practice. So through the times when I've been really sick with Lyme disease, and when I've been in a lot of pain and fatigue, one thing that really kept me going was the chanting that I cultivated, not just as not just as something I do every day, but as a tool for meditation. So especially at times when it's difficult for people to sit meditation, I think that it's a really good tool that takes one to a lot of stillness and a lot of silence. Even though, it's chanting, like how there's words and there's intonations and all that. But even though there's words and there's sounds, somehow it takes one to deep silence. At least that's been my experience. I find that it's also very useful to use as a tool when someone is very, very stressed, or when the mind is racing with a lot of thoughts. Traditionally, we say, okay, when you have a lot of thoughts and your mind is absolutely racing, it's not able to settle down, then do walking meditation to get rid of that energy, or do anapanasati, and anapanasati will automatically calm the mind down. But I'd also like to suggest that similar to those practices of either walking meditation or anapanasati, using chanting definitely removes the edge off. So it absorbs energy and it disperses energy through the body. Or, when people are prone to a lot of panic attacks, people are prone to depression, and sitting down does not seem to be a viable option, then, chanting definitely helps in those situations as well. Another interesting thing is that all our chants that we use, we have translations for all of them, and we just look at the translation in a cursory manner, and we take it for granted that, okay, at the surface, this is what it means. But the more you engage with a particular chant, any chant, and the more you explore the intricacies of the word, and the kind of backstory behind the chant, or the origin story from which the chant originated, and you look at a particular chant time and time again, there are many layers of meaning that reveal itself. So it becomes not just a practice that brings calm and silence, but also a practice that gives rise to a lot of insight. People generally think of parita chanting as a ritualized ceremonial thing. It's something that's done for protection. But some of these paritas have so much of Dhamma in them, right? Like it's just packed with so much of Dhamma. And these things are great aids. They become excellent supports for practice, and they become excellent supports for day-to-day living, especially when you encounter any serious situation, or a situation that's kind of unpleasant and you don't want to deal with it. That somehow, this one particular phrase would just pop into your head and gives you that one moment of pause, gives you that one second that you need to reset. And then you can, kind of respond instead of react, like we spoke in the morning. Traditionally, they say that there are lots of benefits for chanting. Even in our Thai forest traditions, there are lots of monasteries and lots of ajans where they emphasize a lot on chanting. Lumpur PX monastery, I think they do 108 episodes, the full version, almost on a daily basis. Almost like, I know they do it on a daily basis, but sometimes more than one set of 108. A lot of monks take that on as practices for Vasa. So they might say, during the Vasa, every day I'll chant 108 episodes. Or during the Vasa, I'll chant the Attanati Aparita 3 times every day. Things like that. Mahasamaya Sutta. These are all chants that are commonly used for these kinds of adhitanas. And it's very easy to dismiss it and say it's a devotional practice, right? It is a devotional practice, there's no doubt about it. But the value is not simply devotional. Unless you kind of really engage with chanting and do it over a long period of time, then the benefits that accrue from that are, it's unless you do that for a long time, you wouldn't be able to experience the benefits that accrue. Now, traditionally, they say chanting is very good because it has 4 types of powers, or it generates 4 types of balas. The first thing is that it generates Satya Bala, because whatever you chant, you're chanting the truth. So whenever you engage with the truth and you're contemplating the truth and you're chanting the truth, that carries a certain power. Then it also generates a lot of Sila Bala, because all of our protective chants, paritas, not just the paritas, but any sutta chanting, there's a lot of engagement with Sila. It talks about Sila. So constantly your frames of reference are related to Sila. So it has Sila Bala. Then it has Metta Bala, because the purpose of chanting itself is to generate wholesome states of mind and to remove unwholesome states of mind. Now, whether it's for yourself or for others, or you're dedicating it to all sentient beings, it doesn't really matter. But the intention behind chanting is metta, so it carries a lot of metta bala. And finally, it has nada bala, which is the sound of the chanting itself, because it's kind of mellifluous. It has a certain pitch. It's kind of sonorous. So that sound generates kind of vibrations, and that has a lot of power. So this is the traditional kind of explanation given to the benefits of chanting. But in general, I'm sure we've all realized that even when we do a little bit of chanting, it somehow energizes us. It gives us a little bit of brightness in the chitta. But if you take on chanting not just as something you do before or after meditation, but you actually use that as a meditative tool and devote a good chunk of time to the chanting, say 30 minutes a day or 45 minutes a day. And you do that over a period of 4, 5, 6, 7 months, or more than that, few years, then you'll really see the benefits that accrue through that particular practice. So I thought we can chant the Itipiso chant together, probably for about 10 or 15 minutes, and then we can open the floor for Q&A. Everyone's familiar with, so please join me, and then let's try, and I'll keep an eye on the clock, or maybe we can do something like 9 repetitions and then we can open it. Which page is it? Iti piso bhagavārahang samma sambuddho vijjācarana sampanno sugato lokavidhu anuttaro purisa dhamma sarati satta deva manussanang buddho bhagavati savakka Katho Bhagavata Dhammo Sandittiko Akaliko Ehi Pasiko Panayiko Pachatang Veditabho Vinyuhiti Supatipanno Bhagavato Savaka Sangho Ujupatipanno Bhagavato Savaka Sangho Nyaya Patipanno Bhagavato Savaka Sangho Samichi Patipanno Bhagavato Savaka Sangho Yadidanchari Purisa Yugani Atta Purisa Galaye sa bhagavato savaka sangho ahuneyo pahuneyo dakineyo anjali karaniyo anuttaram punya ketang lokasati iti piso bhagavarahang samma sambuddho vijjacarana sampanno sugato lokavidhu anuttaro purisa dhamma sarati satta deva manussanang buddho bhagavati savaka to bhagavata dhammo sandittiko akaliko ehi pasiko opanayiko pachatang veditabho vinyuhiti supatipanno bhagavato savaka sangho ujupatipanno Bhagavato Savaka Sangho Nyaya Patipanno Bhagavato Savaka Sangho Samichi Patipanno Bhagavato Savaka Sangho Yadidanchatari Purisa Atta Purisa Puggalaye sa Bhagavato Savaka Sangho Ahuneyo Pahuneyo Dakineyo Anjali Karaniyo Anuttaram Punya Ketang Lokasati Tipiso Bhagava Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vijja Charana Sampanno Sugato Lokavidu Anuttaro Purisa Dhamma Sarati Satta Devamanusanang buddho bhagavati savakatho bhagavata dhammo sanditiko akaliko ehi pasiko opanayiko pachatang veditabo Vinyuhiti supatipanno bhagavato savaka sangho jupatipanno bhagavato savaka sangho nyaya patipanno bhagavato savaka sangho Samichi patipanno bhagavato savaka sangho Yadidan chattari purisa yugania ta purisa puggalae sa bhagavato savaka sangho ahuneyo pahuneyo dakhineyo anjali karaniyo anuttaram punya ketang lokasati tipiso bhagava arahang samma sambuddho pejja charana sampanno sugato lokavidhu anuttaro purisa dhammasa krati satta deva manusanang Buddho Bhagavati Savakato Bhagavata Dhammo Sanditiko Akaliko Ehi Pasiko Opanayiko Pachatang Veditabho Vinyuhiti Supatipanno Bhagavato Savaka Sangho Jupatipanno Bhagavato Savaka Sangho Nyaya Patipanno Bhagavato Savaka Sangho Samichi Patipanno Bhagavato Savaka Sangho Yadidan Chattari Purisa Yuga Niyatta Purisa Puggala Esa Bhagavato Savaka Sangho Ahuneyo Pahuneyo Dakhineyo Anjali Karaniyo Anuttaram Punya Ketang Lokasati Tipiso Bhagavarahang Samma Sambuddho Vijja Charana Sampanno Sugato Lokavidhu Anuttaro Purisa Dhamma Sarati Satta Deva Manusanang Buddho Bhagavati Savakato Bhagavata Dhammo Sanditiko Akaliko Ehi Pasiko Opanayiko Pachatang Veditabo Vinyuhiti Supatipanno Bhagavato Savaka Sangho Jupatipanno Bhagavato Savaka Sangho Nyaya Patipanno Bhagavato Savaka Sangho Samichi Patipanno Bhagavato Savaka Sangho Yadidan Chattari Purisa Yuga Niyatta अट्टपुरिसपुग्गळाये स भगवतो सावक संघो आहुनेयो पाहुनेयो दक्षिणेयो अंजलिकरणीयो अनुत्तरं पुण्य केतं लोकसातीतिपिसो भगवा अरहं सम्मा सम्बुद्धो विजाचरण सम्पन्नो सुगतो लोकविदु अनुत्तरो पुरिसधम्मसा सत्ता देवमनुस्सानं बुद्धो भगवति सवकाथो भगवता धम्मो संदिष्टिको अकालिको एहि पस्सिको ओपनयिको पच्चत्तं वेदितभ्यो विඤ्युहीति सुपटिपन्नो भगवतो सावक संघो उजुपटिपन्नो भगवतो सावक संघो न्यायपटिपन्नो भगवतो सावक संघो सामीचिपटिपन्नो भगवतो सावक संघो यदिदं चत्तारि पुरिसयुगा अट्टपुरिसपुग्गळाये स भगवतो सावक संघो आहुनेयो पाहुनेयो दक्षिणेयो अंजलिकरणीयो अनुत्तरं पुण्यकेतं लोकसातीतिपिसो कवारहं सम्मा सम्बुद्धो विजाचरण सम्पन्नो सुगतो लोकविदु अनुत्तरो पुरिसधम्मसार सत्ता देवमनुस्सानं बुद्धो भगवति स्वखाथो भगवता धम्मो संदिष्टिको अकालिको एहि पस्सिको ओपनयिको पच्चत्तं वेदितभ्यो विඤ्युहीति सुपटिपन्नो भगवतो सावक संघो उजुपटिपन्नो सावक संघो न्यायपटिपन्नो भगवतो सावक संघो सामीचिपटिपन्नो भगवतो सावक संघो यदिदं चत्तारि पुरिसयुगा अट्टपुरिसपुग्गळाये स भगवतो सावक संघो आहुनेयो पाहुनेयो दक्षिणेयो अंजलिकरणीयो अनुत्तरं पुण्य केतं लोकसातीतिपिसो भगवा अरहं सम्मा सम्बुद्धो विजाचरण सम्पन्नो सुगतो लोकविदु अनुत्तरो पुरिसधम्मसा रतिसत्ता देवमनुस्सानं बुद्धो भगवति सवकाथो भगवता धम्मो संदिष्टिको अकालिको एहि पस्सिको ओपनयिको पच्चत्तं वेदितभ्यो विඤ्युहीति सुपटिपन् Bhagavato Savaka Sangho Jupatipanno Bhagavato Savaka Sangho Nyaya Patipanno Bhagavato Savaka Sangho Sami Chipatipanno Bhagavato Savaka Sangho Yadidanjatari Purisayuga Yatta Purisa Puggalaye Sabhagavato Savaka Sangho Ahuneyo Pahuneyo Dakshineyo Anjali Karaniyo Anuttaram Punyaketang Lokasati. Okay, so let's take a 5-minute break and come back and talk a little bit about this and then open up the floor for Q&A. Okay, so any thoughts on, has anyone used chanting as a practice, or any thoughts on that, or any questions around that? Or?
Thank you, Bhante, um, for enlightening us about the chanting practice. I've never done it by myself, but going to Goenkaji's courses, you listen to these words during the morning chanting. I know they are set for your protection and well-being, and especially during the course. Like you said, like when somebody's in a lot of anxious state and racing thoughts are coming, and at the same time, mind may not be even reluctant to even do the chanting. So just playing the chanting will have the same effect as, and maybe listening to Goenkaji or some monks chanting will have the same effect as just doing it by yourself. And other thing is, like, sometimes we are racing the thoughts and you're trying to prepare for the worst case scenario, but you also don't want that worst case scenario to happen. So can listening and in doing the chanting um, lessen the impact of the situation that you think might happen? So,
Well, basically, yeah, those are very good questions. So to answer your first question, yes, listening will definitely help. Um, but obviously, chanting, putting forth the effort, will give uh, will have a different effect. Listening will definitely calm the mind. It might bring a lot of solace. It might bring a lot of calm. And especially if you listen to someone who you respect and you have a lot of regard for, then it inspires a lot of devotion. It inspires a lot of faith. So all those benefits are there, but there's definitely something that happens energetically when one is actually chanting. So there's a lot of work that happens with the breath. There's a lot of work that happens at the diaphragm. There's a lot of work that happens around the chest. Then there is a focus given towards keeping the rhythm, keeping the pace. There's a lot of attention that's paid to repeating the words properly, saying the words out loud. So yes, even though listening has a lot of benefits, doing it over and over again has a different energetic feel to it. Secondly, one of the main aspects of using chanting as a tool is primarily to get your mind away from thinking. So I'm not saying that if you do 108 itipisos, you'll win the lottery. Or I'm not saying that if you do 108 itipisos, you'll never have a road accident. By all that's good in the universe, may that happen, for sure. With all sincere good wishes, may it happen. But that's not the aim of chanting. It's not something transactional, right? The aim of chanting, at least the way I kind of have used it, is to take the mind out of the vortex it's in. Because we are thinking animals, we are intellectual animals. So everything that we encounter is always approached by thought, is approached by intellect. Now, in certain instances, that's very good. But in a majority of instances, it's not really effective because you can't accomplish much by thinking. Thinking has its value, thinking has its place, but a lot of problems that we create for ourselves is purely the result of overthinking situations, overthinking scenarios, replaying things in our heads, making these different permutations and combinations, kind of saying, okay, if this happens, this is what I'll do. If someone says this to me, this is how I'll react. So there's a lot of drama that goes on in the guise of thinking, in the guise of intellect, right? What chanting does is it takes your mind away from all that. And it brings in some kind of energy into your body. If there is a lot of anxious energy stored up, that anxious energy gets channelized into the chanting as well. So it works at an energetic level and it works at the level of the intellect. So I would say, yeah, try and do it, and see what happens. You've got to try it for yourself, would be my encouragement. But yes, it's not approached in a transactional manner. It's approached more to get your mind away from thought, get your mind more focused on what's happening inside the body, and that's how calm and peace get built up. Now, definitely, as you keep repeating it, after you've done your 108 or whatever repetitions or however long, if you go by the clock, you go by the clock, your mind is still immersed in that chant, even after you've stopped chanting it. The mood of the mind inclines towards that. So a natural inclination would be, oh, what does this word mean? Or what does that word mean? What is the implication of this phrase? How can I apply that? Or, oh, I never thought about it that way. So even after the actual act, it still has a carryover effect that I find very beneficial.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Bhante, I thought I'll share a personal example. तो इस साल की शुरुआत में मैं काफी बीमार हो गई थी और काफी दवाइयां वगैरह चल रही थी, हॉस्पिटलाइजेशन भी हुआ था। और मैंने उस समय अपनी साधना को शुरू में ट्रांजैक्शनल तरीके से यूज करने का प्रयास किया। मैंने सोचा कि मेरे कुछ अच्छे कर्म भी हैं, मैंने ये भी किया है, वो भी किया है, तो मैं ठीक हो जाऊंगी। नहीं हुई। उसके बाद फिर मैंने चैंट्स भी काफी सारे प्ले किए, तो शायद उसका कुछ असर होता होगा। मैं ये नहीं कह रही हूँ कि नहीं हुआ होगा। माइंड कभी अगर शब्द सुनते थे तो उस पे मन जाता था, और वो जरूरी नहीं है बुद्धिस्ट चैंट्स ही हो, वो अलग अलग जो भी हैं, जहां भी इंटरेस्ट है वहां उसके चैंट्स थे। लेकिन मैं क्योंकि भगवान की शिक्षा के संपर्क में रहे हैं, तो मन ये चाह रहा था कि कोई एक एंकर मिले और अंदर एक थोड़ा कुछ तो समता हो। एक्सेप्टेंस किसी लेवल पे थी, जो घटनाएं घट रही थी उनके प्रति एक्सेप्टेंस थी, हो भी रही थी, लेकिन उतनी नहीं थी जितना मेरी खुद से आकांक्षा थी, आशा थी। सो आई वाज काइंड ऑफ डिसइल्यूजन्ड। इट वाज अ वेरी, I thought it was a good thing that happened, because it brought me face to face with where I was in terms of my own practice. But talking about chants, and कई बार ऐसी स्थिति होती थी फिजिकली और मेंटली भी कि मैं चैंटिंग तो नहीं कर सकती थी, बहुत ज्यादा वीक भी थी। लेकिन थोड़ी बहुत जो मैंने चैंटिंग की हुई है या पता है, और मैं बहुत प्रैक्टिस भी नहीं की है मैंने चैंटिंग की। इति पिसो इज मे बी वन ऑफ द most that I may have done. So a recollection of that sometimes would happen in the mind, और उसके वजह से अपनी साधना की शक्ति किसी तरह जागने लगती थी। It's very difficult to explain that, but you know that उन कुछ शब्दों में 8-10 लाइनों के अंदर हमारी जो हमने अब तक सीखा है, समझा है, वो जो एंकर्स हैं हमारे, वो उसके अंदर कहीं पकड़े हुए थे, लॉक थे, जो मुझे नहीं पता था। बट वो ऐसी घटना में, ऐसी डिल्यूडेड स्लीपीनेस, वेकननेस के स्टेट में वो एंकर बने। ये नहीं कहूंगी उस हद तक जैसी मेरी आशा थी, बट आई वाज एबल टू काइंड ऑफ लेट्स से crawl out of the situation, be with the situation, crawl out of it with that. So even though I was not able to chant as in vocally and therefore experience the energetic effect, which also has a lot of value when one is able to do that, but even that mental anchor with the base of understanding of the words, not just a rote chanting, and but the interesting part is the mind बहुत ऐसी medicines के effect में sedated effect में है, तो आप बहुत शब्दों के मीनिंग को भी शायद इतना नहीं इवोक कर पा रहे हो. So it's like like a something in the background running, but because it has a meaning that you have ascribed to it in the past, so that meaning becomes available to you then, even though you're not consciously reflecting upon it. And therefore the strength of one's practice can come up and arise, and one can stay anchored with that. So that's something I had experienced, and I thought I'll share in this context.
Oh, lovely. Thank you for sharing that. Very, in fact, that's how it was. Like when I'm fairly sick and when I do chanting as well, it's very similar. Yeah, you're kind of floating in between wakefulness and sleep, and you don't know where you are, but this chant is just going on and on in your consciousness, right? Or you could even be playing it on a device or something. But kind of the idea it evoked is that, there's something there that I can hold on to. And the image that would quite often come to mind is that, I'm walking and it's all dark and someone puts their hand out for you to hold and someone leads you through the darkness. That was the kind of feeling I would get. But of course, when you're in good health, then chanting and putting forth the effort, putting forth the energy, that certainly has its benefits. But like you said, so I guess this comes back to your original question too. So if one is unable to put forth the effort to do that, then even listening acts as it has tremendous benefits. Thank you for sharing that.
Bhante, good evening. My question is on chanting, adding music to it. And for example, now the shrine is, we've added flowers to it for it to look more prettier and to make the chanting look more melodious. What is the take, whether, adding a musical instrument along with it, or so it kind of lifts the spirits up. Mm-hmm. What is the take on that? I mean, is that permissible?
Well, in our tradition, we don't do that, like especially in Theravada and especially in the Thai forest Sangha. We make it very conscious to keep it as simple as possible. So what happens is, the maximum that happens is that few voices harmonize and then there's some melody created. But there are many traditions that use instruments, that use instruments to support chanting. They make chanting more melodious, for sure. And listening to those chants and listening to chants where you can actually recognize the meaning of the words in the midst of that music and in the midst of that midst of the effect that these instruments generate is very, very beautiful, right? Now, personally, I enjoy it, but from the point of view of an established tradition like ours, the idea is leaning more towards simplicity rather than complexity. So that's, yeah, so that's what.
Good evening, Bhanteji. So thank you so much for sharing the benefits of chanting. So I will share some of my thoughts and examples.
Please.
तो मैं अगस्त से आई थिंक चैंटिंग लर्न करना स्टार्ट किया एंड काफ़ी उसके फायदे देखे. Everything you have mentioned right now. So couple of examples. At that time I was in hometown and due to some reasons, situations, I was in constant stress. And luckily I got an opportunity to learn chanting and I started doing that. So the chanting started to help me coming out of from those stressful situation. And I also noticed if there was any aversive thoughts rising, I saw that the phrases of chantings were countering and everything was like in terms of energy, it was changing. And the anxiety, if the anxiety was there, and if I start chanting even the vandana, the homage, so there was a very nice effect in the mind. It was like gladdening, and it stayed for 9, 10, or 12 hours. And then I was going for, I used to go to meet officials and for paperwork. So I saw the effect of while conversing with them, they were very supportive. They actually became very supportive. Earlier they were not, but after that they became supportive. I was riding bike every day for 20 or 30 or 40 kilometers. So while riding, there was chanting going on in their mind. So all these effects, and sometimes when I was going for the interview, there was anxious thoughts and all. So immediately remembering the chanting, so those thoughts were going away, fading away. And then the interviewer is in front of me. I'm just relaxed and answering all the questions, even conversing in a very uh, normal way. So this is a difference I have witnessed directly, like after chanting and without chanting. So I just wanted to share.
Great. Thank you, Shivendraji. Yeah, lovely experiences. Yeah, it's strange how the effect lasts for a long time. And who knows? I mean, the world is a mysterious place. Who knows how these things work and how exactly, where we get protection from or where we get support from. But, like it's mentioned in the first verse of the Dhammapada, Mano Pubbangama Dhamma. Intention, the mind is chief, so the intentionality of chanting is something very wholesome. So the results have to be wholesome as well. Very interesting. Thanks for sharing that. So Payalji, and then you can. Yes.
I, for one, am not a great fan of chanting, essentially because of my prejudice towards Pali. I find it very, very difficult. But when I was attending classes by Dhar sir, he'd mentioned that the Four Noble Truths mentioned in Dhammachakra Parvatan Sutta. So I had kind of, at that point in time, kind of memorized only the Four Noble Truth portion of it. And when my mom was unwell and all, and when I used to have that bout of anxiety and when I used to be very hyper about things, because if she was doing something and I was scared, I didn't know, I had no medical background and I used to be scared. I realized that it was not that it calmed me down completely, but it broke that fast moving train of anxiety, as in it didn't come to a complete halt, but it did slow it down. So I can understand what these guys are saying, because me, for one, when I wasn't even doing it seriously, it helped me kind of gain a bit of peace. So, and help, and that even that small duration of calm, it helped me handle that situation a lot better than I would have done otherwise. So,
Lovely. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, it takes the edge off, doesn't it? It removes the power and the grip anxiety and fear have over us. If not completely, then significantly. Thank you for sharing that. Namaste ji.
I'm a householder, so I just wanted to know. Namaste. I'm a householder, so I just wanted to know I'm very new to this Theravada tradition, although I've been listening to the monks for the last 1 year. I very frequently listen to Ajahn Jayasaro. So my question is, for my well-being and for the well-being of my family, which sutta you advise me to chant regularly?
So again, there are different paritas that are traditionally prescribed for different things, right? In general, for the well-being of lay people, the one that's often recommended is the Mangala Sutta. And the Mangala Sutta, the Pali is just, it's really spectacular. Like the choice of words, the way the words are phrased, the way ideas are presented, very, very beautiful. So, I mean, Payalji is not a connoisseur of Pali, but if you have any inclination to linguistic beauty and things like that, that's a beautiful sutta. The meaning is also extremely pertinent to lay people and to family situations. It's a very supportive paritta. So if you start with that and read the translation, see if it gels with you, and if it does, then that's what I would recommend.
And my second question is, are you not feeling cold?
No, no, I come from Canada. In fact, I got 2 photographs this morning of our monastery there, and there's about that much snow.
Okay.
And Ajahn Pavaro, who's now the acting abbot over there, he said the snow is so wet that the tractor gets bogged down if we start shoveling snow. So no, this isn't very cold.
Okay. Thank you.
I just had a follow-up question related to chanting only. So when we have those proliferation of thoughts going on related to some unpleasant situation that happened, and you're thinking all the after effects of it, what it could happen, in those moments, like sometimes we try to be with our sensations and breath, because the idea is to uproot that anxiety. So when we do replace those moments with chanting, does it really might uproot that to some extent, or it just kind of suppresses those thoughts? Because there's a chance that that anxiety can come up again when we have stopped chanting. So my query is, how do you decide whether it's really suppressing the thoughts, or it's kind of really helping in removing those thoughts to some extent so that they don't arise?
No, I would definitely say it's not just a suppression. I've been using chanting in Theravada Buddhism before that, whatever I used to do. So definitely, I don't think it's a suppression. See, even if you go to your breath and if you go to your sensations, if anxiety and fear are deep-rooted, they will take a break and they will come back. So the repetitive nature of fear and anxiety depends on the energy and the power and the depth with which it exists in each one of our psyches. So how chanting works is that it kind of slows down, and it actually releases some of the grip that this has on us. So again, the question is not whether the chanting gets rid of the fear and anxiety or not, but how the chanting allows you to accept fear and anxiety arising, and how chanting acts as a conduit through which all of these can exist. So there is anxiety, there is fear, and there is the chanting as well. What the chanting does is that it takes the edge off the fear and anxiety. In no way does it suppress it, but it allows all of these things to coexist without the threat and energy, without the intensity of the threat and energy they usually come with. And in a way, I mean, for me personally, I found chanting to be a lot more effective than going through to the breath and to the sensations. I found that to be a little passive. Whereas this, I found I was getting more involved in it, was pulling me in. So taking me away from fear and anxiety, pulling me inwards towards the chant and its meanings. So again, that could just be me, but try it.
I just would like to, whether you can, elaborate or recommend that, there is one, this Vandana Pustika is there, I think, which is quite, this chanting book.
Yeah.
So I think it is quite common among this tradition actually. And we have been, chanting it for quite long. As far as I personally am concerned, I chant, as I told you, we have been discussing that I feel like chanting anything ever since I have come into the contact of this chanting. So I feel like chanting each and everything. All the times I feel like chanting. So even while driving car, whatever I remember, I keep chanting. So just now, as you said that, there are certain traditions even in Thailand, like Iti Piso Bhagavavi chanted 108 times something. So, I mean, chanting, every chant for like, we devote some 15 minutes, half an hour, or whatever time we devote, maybe 1 hour, 45 minutes, as you said, that only once every chant or certain chants, again and again, as you said. So is there any, it makes any difference or, it has some significance? That is the first thing I would like to know.
Well, short chants are good for cyclical repetition. Because, short chants are designed for that. Shorter chants are designed for repeating over and over again many, many times. You could even pick out portions of longer chants, right, of certain verses or certain paragraphs out of longer chants and keep repeating that over and over again. So if you take the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, it takes you about 15, 16 minutes to. So that's not something that would really work well for cyclical repetition, unless you take a portion out of it and keep doing that. So, but like you say, if you have 45 minutes and you're driving and you're chanting, then, you could do 2 or 3 long chants, or you could do one short chant many times. So it depends on your availability, but there's no prescribed formula as such. People create like chanting lists, like how people have their playlists on their iPhone, and you could create your own chanting list on, and depending on the time, you could use that for sure.
So basically, is it same thing whether, we chant different chants, or as you said that, some shorter version of the longer chants or shorter chants many times. So whatever we feel like, we can go ahead with that.
Yes.
So there is nothing, specific reason or significance that it has.
No, not that.
Or benefit or something.
I mean, not that I'm directly aware of. No, it doesn't, because I don't approach chanting thinking of the idea of a benefit, right? It's something that you do and it leads you to wholesomeness, and that's the benefit for me. So I would say that an approach like that makes you a little more amenable, makes you a little more open to the whole experience, rather than saying, okay, if I do this chant, then this will happen. And if I do this chant 18 times, then X will happen. But if I chant it 36 times, 2X will happen, things like that. It takes away from the experience. So the attention is more on the expectation. Then if that doesn't happen, it leads to disappointment, things like that. So
well, in my case, I enjoy more about chanting actually. Like just now you said Mangal Sut. So like that, there is kind of some preference over for some certain reasons, maybe for a pronunciation point of view or rhythm point of view, feel like. But yes, Mangal Sutta is, from all angles, I find it very good to chant actually. And the second thing is that if by chance or for any reason, like I'm very good at Devanagari, so to a large extent, I'm not sure that whole, but to a large extent, my pronunciation is good, and I try to match the rhythm also. Coming into listening monks and all, I try to be as close as to them.
Great.
But if someone chant some wrong pronunciation, so does it have any wrong or bad impression or something like that?
I don't think so. I don't think so. Yeah, that's traditionally like if you take the Vedic chanting, there's a lot of emphasis on that, right? The pronunciation has to be correct. If the pronunciation is not correct, then it has some bad effects, especially when it comes to bija mantras and things like that. Here, there are no bija mantras as such. It's just, it's common sense that's being delivered to you. So whether you pronounce it right or wrong, as long as, the import is, as long as the import is received, I think that's more than enough.
As long as intentions are okay.
Yeah, and the
good.
meaning is understood.
I mean, you are thinking, you are trying to get that, yes, it is a good to read and to learn and to, it's okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So it's related to chanting. I'm not favoring any particular scripture, but like I still follow 6 scriptures. But when I read them and I try to understand the meaning, sometimes it's all shows me it's all the Buddha's teachings in there. So my query is related to I understand the importance of all this, but I don't know Pali, but I also listen to scriptures. But when I listen to them, and then those thoughts come to my mind, oh, this is what Buddha is also saying, you know. So that kind of chanting, or with the reflection that, these are the words that Buddha is also saying, can also be helpful.
So definitely. In Indian religions, Indian philosophies are very, very syncretic. Each one flows into the other. So if you read, if you read some of the Buddhist texts, you hear the voice of the ancient Upanishadic rishis in it. You read the words of Adi Shankaracharya, you listen, you hear the words of the Buddha there. So, like Sikhism has the concept of Ik Omkar. Ik Omkar is purely, it sounds like very Advaitic in nature. So I would say that, there has been each of these thoughts, each of these schools certainly have influenced the other. And see, no teacher lives in isolation from the other, right? Because if there's goodness and that goodness is universal, it's going to be applicable whether you're a Sikh or a Jain or you're Buddhist or you're a Sanatani or whatever you are. It doesn't really matter. So yeah, what you're describing sounds great to me. I do that a lot too. So
when I'm out of distress, then I listen to when I'm out of distress, then I may not resort to this chanting, but I do listen to like Gurbani and Shabads. But when I'm listening, then I also don't understand hardcore Punjabi, but at the same time, when I'm listening with the English translations, then all those things are there, impermanence, suffering, all those things are embedded in those. So then those things come into my mind, like, and that way your faith also grows. And in those moments, it gives you that subtle calmness and peacefulness, and it's like an anchor.
Absolutely. And it's also like what you've been listening to as a child as well, right? So all that plays a big part, definitely. Yeah, and it's good to have that open, accepting, inclusive outlook on the spiritual path, because if that's not there, then it makes it restricted, tight. Just
Just I would like to give emphasis, as most of us have come from the Goenkaji tradition, and there they restrict others to from chanting basically. So I think that is a very strong base to raise having such doubts and such confusion whether one should recite or not, unless it is accurate or this thing.
Yeah.
So that is why all this I think probably that is the reason to have explanation on all this.
Yeah. Yeah, there is also a rule in the Patimokkha that monks shouldn't make lay people follow the chants line by line, right? Chanting together is okay, but like how they do in the Ved Pathshalas, like I can't say a line and ask you to follow, that's so again, that is also there to kind of ensure that people do not take on positions of power from those activities and things like that. So, so there are many reasons, but yeah, feel free to chant away. No harm will come to you if you chant.
Bhante, taking forward Mr. Surendra's thing is, I think there is a notion that was created that if you chant, you're going to adulter the vibrations of the area. So there was that kind of a notion, and it takes a lot of time. The chanting creates good vibrations in the hall or in the sala or wherever you are. So that's why people were forbidden from chanting.
I see. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So, well, after we, I mean, the first time I got in touch with the forest tradition, and I was even very skeptical. Can I chant? I mean, it's like forbidden chanting. So, and we were with Ajahn Anand, and he says, "Go ahead. I mean, pronounce the words correctly and keep your time, keep your pace." And then it just went smoothly. I mean,
yeah, it's a very enjoyable thing to do, isn't it? Like, there's a lot of beauty to proper chanting. There's a lot of beauty to coordinated chanting. There's a lot of energy there. So it's certainly a group activity. Makes sense as a group activity. It's also very good as an individual activity. But yeah, thanks for sharing that.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Rather, I was with Ajahn Amro in the Mahabodhi temple where the Tipitaka chanting was happening, and to hear the whole Sangha from all different Buddhist countries chanting the Tipitaka, and it was the Mahinda Sutta that was going on at that time. It was just, you felt so fortunate to be hearing that under the Bodhi tree. It was
spectacular.
Yeah.
Lovely.
But may I share something of my experience with chanting is of course in my home also, we have this Buddhist culture around my hometown. So there was chanting which was taking place regularly, but I was not much into it. But in my time in Nagpur, basically, I heard about this story that the devas basically they don't need kind of food, but they kind of survive on your merits when you do the parita chantings. So I found that thing very interesting, and I just, out of my interest, I started chanting. So every day when I woke up at 6 a.m., I would just chant the paritas for the devas, keeping in mind that I'm chanting for the devas, may it help the devas. So, but somehow it also gave me a sense of kind of protection. Apart from that, if we talk about specific chants, especially the Mahamangal Sutta and Karniya Metta Sutta. So, as you also mentioned, the meaning of the chant at different times, when you reflect back on the chant, it always have something new to offer. And it also acted, those chants also acted as like a broad direction giving thing in my life. Because when you chant Asevanacha Balanang, and you kind of, you first, okay, let's see if it happens. And then, you go into company of wise and you really experience, okay, this is helping me in life. And then the faith becomes stronger and stronger. And so that was my experience. One more thing I would like to share is when I was in Nanachat, there was this layman called this young person, Luciano from Brazil. So he did not know many chants, but he did know Iti Piso. So we were saying ki, I know if so there are many wild, like small animals, scorpions and everything. So the monks would chant this specific sutta, which for you do metta for all the beings. Yeah, thank you, sir. Khanda Paritta. So I also told him, so if you want protection from ants and scorpions, may you chant. So but his response was very good. He said, I know only one chant, Iti Piso, and whenever I feel frightened, I only chant that. So yeah, that is what I want to share.
Lovely.
Ajahn, it was Milinda Sutta, not, I made a mistake. The Milinda Sutta.
Lovely.
Well, there was one technical question, especially from Nikhil ji, why it is chanted, like what is the significance of 108 times chanting? Is there a specific?
I think it's just a cultural thing. I don't know. Like even in Vedic chanting repetitions, 108 seems to be a favorite number. I remember reading the significance of 108 somewhere. Like there are 18 chapters of the Bhagavad Gita. I think there are 108 texts of the Tantra, I think. I'm not sure, but yeah, that seems to be a significant number. But I've forgotten the significance of 108.
There could be 108 types of feelings. Vedanas.
108 types.
There are 108 types of Vedanas.
Vedanas.
So there's a sutta in which he spells out all of them.
Great. Which sutta is that, Darsa?
Sattatthana Sutta.
Sattatthana Sutta. Learn something new.
We studied this Pasa. We studied that. I mean, used it for our practice.
Oh, I'll look up the video then. That'll be interesting. Thank you. Great.
See something? We've used chanting at variety of places with with effects which were helpful in situations. And I'm talking of when I was a teacher of Vipassana in Goenkaji tradition. There we have used it. Many times the students will fall ill and have difficulties. So I would go there and chant the Sabbiti or Vivad Jantu and do it few times. And many times found that the person would calm down. Once we had a very major problem in the course, and one student was possessed by some external. And the teachers who had gone there were just the new ones, and they got really thrown off. So I was called, and I went there and tried to handle it. So it happened that the Dhamma Sevaks got really frightened. She was a lady, and all of them said, "We are just going. We're not going to stay here."
Right.
So then I sat with them, and we chanted the sutta, which when I forget the name, where the Devata Asur Sangrama and the Dajjaga Sutta.
Dajjaga Sutta.
Because that is for fear, that is shown to be a very powerful. So I sat with them late night and chanted the whole of things, and they said, "Okay, we'll stay, we'll not go."
Yeah.
Then it happened in Tihar, we were conducting a course, very first course we conducted. The prisoners were all life sentence prisoners, actually extremely, serious criminals.
Yes. Yeah.
So we were conducting course. My senior Ram Singh Ji was there. I was assisting him. So on the 6th or 7th day, there were discourse of Goenka Ji, and there he used to talk, in earlier versions of the suttas, he used to talk very strong language about, the typical words were there, which are said with great respect and love, but they were misinterpreted. They would say, लोग बैठ के राम राम करते रहते हैं, तो अगर कोई राम होगा आसमान पे तो आंसू बहा होगा. Then some of those prisoners got offended. You never use the word Buddha, you say Bhagavan Buddha. When you hear Ram, you said this. And being of what temperament, they said that we're going to break this whole thing, we're going to break your TV and destroy this, because we had created a temporary pandal. And our wardens, so the assistant superintendent was absolutely scared. He said to both of us, "Please don't get out now.
Okay.
They are already having life sentence. Even if they kill you, they won't get more than that.
Yeah.
So you better be away. Don't do anything." I said, okay. So then they closed them, and the session ended at 9:30 or so, and they were locked up in the cells, because it was a prison. So he said, "Come on now, let's sit in the hall, in that tent." And from 10 till 11:30, we chanted the Tikvathana. And he said, "Don't worry, everything." He was feeling that I might be scared. I said, "Everything will be fine, don't worry. We'll sit here only and do it here." And next day, then early morning, I said, "We'll go around each cell and do metta chant as we go around." I said, "Yeah, you go." And he was, of course, very elder to me. He thought that maybe these prisoners might get violent. So he didn't tell me, and he went away on his own early morning. Then I ran after him and said, "Why did you go away, Ram Singh Ji?" He said, "You are young and I'm old, I'm past 70. I thought if they hurt you, then it'll be very bad. So let me handle it."
Oh, that's kind.
But then both of us went around, and then one of the chief he was a kind of hardened criminal, of a Sansi tribe, is a criminal tribe. He said, "गुरुजी आप डरो नहीं, कुछ नहीं होगा. वो जो बोल रहा था ना, मैंने उसको रात को बता दिया है. अगर तूने कुछ किया तो you'll be set right. तब कुछ नहीं होगा." So these are kind of strange. There are no rational explanation. There's actually transcendental forces operating on their own.
Yeah.
And I've seen it operated so many times. It's inexplicable that this will do that.
Exactly.
There's no way we can predict. But I've seen it happen so many times, and that the protection to the Dhamma of the Dhamma is certainly operates. There's no doubt about that.
Absolutely. Sadhu, thanks for sharing that, Darshan. Fascinating. Okay, so we can, so the next session is at 7.
Yeah, the evening session, that will be the
Regular evening session, okay.
that people would like to offer to them.
Oh. Okay, sure. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Samudra. Sadhu. Sukhi hotu. Sukhi hotu. Sukhi hotu. For sure.
And one of the items is from my. She couldn't be here.
Oh.
She lost her son due to suicide last year.
Oh.
So she just to kind of keep her.
Yes, for
She
sure.
also recently lost her mother. So.
Oh, okay.
So she was requesting if I could keep
Definitely.
her at the
Definitely.
to my grandmother.
Yes.
She passed away, so that's that grief is still persistent at times. So I would appreciate if you could.
Certainly. Why don't you send me an email with all the details, and we'll definitely. Yeah. Yes, I mean the office email, right? Yeah. Yes, yes. So that, yeah, either that, it'll reach me. Thank you. Definitely, will do. Definitely. Nice to see you here in Delhi. You should come to Tisarana.
Yeah, it's quite about 5-6 hours away.
Yes.
And, so sometimes whenever my job is in the US, and that's why I'm staying in the falls. But I just get very hard time at the immigration.
Yeah,
these days, so
yeah.
it just becomes very nervous that time.
It's true. So maybe I can just chant an Anumodana for this. Yatha varivaha pura paripurenti sagarang evameva ito dinang petanang upakapati chitang patitang tumhang kipameva samijjatu sabbe purentu sankappa chando panaraso yatha mani jyotiraso yatha Sabitio vivajjantu sabbarogo vinasatu mate bhavatvantarayo sukhi digayuko bhava abhivadana silisa nityang buddhapachayino chattaro dhamma vaddhanti ayuvanno sukhang balang ayudo balado dhiro vannado patibanadho sukha sadhatha medhavi sukhang so adigacchati ayung datva balang vannang sukhang cha patibanadho dighayu yasavahoti yathayatthupapajjati ti bhavatu sabba mangalang rakhantu sabba devata sabba buddhanubhavena sada sutti bhavantu te bhavatu sabba mangalang rakhantu sabba devata sabba dhammanubhavena sada sutti bhavantu te bhavatu sabba mangalang rakhantu sabba devata sabba sanghanubhavena sada sutti bhavantu te. Thank you very much. So we'll pay respects to the shrine and Hanji, please, your mic.
Quite often we think about the benefits of practice. So when I was translating the Girimananda Sutta, where Ananda goes to Bhagavan and he says, you do this 10 chantings, 10 sanya chantings there. And the word which is used there is Thanang Kopana Vejjati. It is translated as it may help him.
Yeah.
Actually, literal translation is who knows it may help.
Who knows? Yes.
I mean, Buddha saying, who knows it may help him.
Yeah.
That's something, whenever I think of it, I get goosebumps, Buddha
Exactly.
is saying that, my God. And we are saying, which will do what?
No, but that's exactly, you
To
see.
Anand, who knows? Who knows it may help him. And we want to see this should help this should help this.
Exactly. But,
it's a phenomenal state that these two, but they're not translated normally. It is translated as it may benefit.
yeah. Kopana, yeah, exactly.
Kopana vijjati. Ko, who? Vijjati knows.
Perhaps, yeah.
Who knows?
Who knows? Who knows? Yeah. Kopana vijjati.
So the Buddha can say, who knows? Yeah. We also should reduce our expectations.
Exactly. That was, you see, I'm so glad you brought it up, because every time I see that phrase, the same thing comes to mind. And for me, what it indicates is the Buddha actually kind of, without saying, or the Buddha implying that, do not make this transactional. Do not attach all of these wishes and expectations, and then it becomes like a deal. Okay, I do 108, then my son would get 4th rank. If I do 108 3 times, he might get 1st rank. And that's how the human mind works, unfortunately. So glad you brought that up. Thank you. We'll pay respects.